So welcome everyone to our April 2nd Saturday program. My name is Laura Morrison, and I am the National WCA Programming Chair. Today's session is we are going to learn about the I Am Grateful for You postcard project with artist Anne Labovitz. This I Am Grateful for You postcard initiative is a year-long partnership between Anne Labovitz's I Love You Institute and the Women's Caucus for Art. This durational nomadic intervention prioritizes socially engaged practices, emphasizing acts of kindness as a radical act. We launched this project on Valentine's Day 2025 at the College Art Association's conference, and this initiative is going to continue with a year-long outreach to all their WCA chapters and community. Anne Labovitz is a contemporary artist dedicated to making artworks that are urgent, participatory, and unrepentantly beautiful. She makes artwork that aims to challenge isolation, loneliness, and disconnection by activating color, movement, and light in large-scale immersive work. Local context and creating connections with others are embodied in her creative process. For Anne, color is energy, a life force, and space is dialogical and dynamic. Using color, light, and movement, she creates experimental, site-specific work designed to engage a visceral and emotional place for viewers. Anne founded the I Love You Institute, which is an artist-led, site-specific project urgently working with communities to creatively address today's world. The Institute combines art making, social justice, radical kindness, and relational listening to normalize saying I love you as an alternative to division and conflict. So welcome, Anne.
So much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here. It's nice to see some of your faces. I just want to say hi before I put on the share screen, because then everybody kind of either goes away or moves to really small spots. I'm calling in from Fargo, North Dakota, where I have an exhibition at the Plains Art Museum, and I don't have a beautiful background because I'm in the offices, because I'm as close as I can be to the router. So hopefully the internet will work beautifully. I'm excited to be here, and let's see if I can share my screen. Bear with me. Just gonna do a little introduction to my practice and the I Love You Institute, and then we'll have a little half-hour kind of introduction to my practice, and then we'll have a half-hour conversation about radical kindness. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Okay, so now that's my screen. We have to make sure we can get it controlled here. Then we just do the view, make it all big and beautiful. This is a little flyer, which you probably saw, which brought you here today. And we did, as Laura said, we did do kind of introduce myself and the project I Love You Institute, and I'm Grateful for You project at the College Art Association annual meeting for you in New York. I think it was last month. So I'm very, very excited to be here with you. And I want to do there's no audio, so I can actually talk over this. It's like a 2-minute visual introduction to my practice. I think of color as something really powerful, and especially at really monumental scale, can be really impactful emotionally to viewers. So I'll just share with you it's a little slide or video of my current works. Thank you for watching that. So I'm Ann Labovitz. As Laura said, I'm an artist, public artist, arts educator, arts advocate, fierce anti-racist, and fellow human being and citizen of the world. And my practice has been a long one. I've been an artist for 30 years. So when you look at that body of work that I just sent in the little video, it sort of encapsulates, well, just the recent work. But each and every thing that I do kind of leads to the next thing. So I'm a big believer in having a really iterative research-based practice. So I do a lot of research, I interview a lot of people, I do a lot of reading, and looking, I'm always looking at art. I'm traveling, looking at art every time, whenever I can, because I think it's really an important part of expanding one's practice. So as a way of introducing, this won't have sound either. This is a little harder to watch. That's weird. Do you hear that sound?
No,
That's funny. It's really loud for
yeah,
me.
we don't hear
This
anything.
is a project that I did, that went to these countries, really thinking about, through the Sister Cities organization, how to promote peace one individual at a time. And I think especially in this time, I started in 2013 and it was a good idea then. It was a 6-year project. There were 2,500 volunteers and was really billowing over and over. And I did a lot of interviews and met a lot of people and try to work with kind of humanizing other, and I think it was an important project then, and I think it's even more important now when we think of our current situation. So I'll tell you a little bit about this project because a couple reasons why I think it's important to talk about for me in terms of my practice. There were a lot of things I tried out before I did this, and there were a lot of things I kind of experimented with during this project. It was really difficult to get people to agree to do the project. So I had a museum partner that agreed to work with me in my hometown, Duluth, Minnesota. And I had a really hard time getting everybody else to agree. The sister cities were concerned that it was too big of a project. They didn't think I could do it. They thought it would be too expensive. So I had some resistance there, and it took like a year and a half to get them to agree to go forward with it. And I ended up having to go to one of the venues in person and say, hey, here's what I propose. This is what I'd like to do. And once I met the director, she said, okay, I think it's too big of a project, but Anne can do it. So she believed in me. And then that helped me pave the way to go to these other countries. And I say that to you because I think it's really important as an artist to give ourselves make our own projects and our own opportunities, because so much of the time we spend, I don't know about you, but I spend a fair amount of time, maybe even an excessive amount of time, applying to things and trying to get opportunities. And so I'm a believer in kind of marrying your own passion and things that are really important to you and that are unique to you and your life experience with other sort of infrastructures, and how can we make partnerships and make things happen. And even here's a great example, like bringing the I Love You Institute together with the Women's Caucus for the Arts. We together are better, and the more we do together, the better we are, and the more people we can impact. So this project started in 2013, and way back then we didn't have Zoom. Actually, we had something called Skype, which many of you may remember. But it was wonderful because I was able to interview people in these faraway places. And what I learned, a couple things I learned, is the questions were less important than just the leaning in. So then I developed this kind of full body listening, and that's something I call relational listening, which is really about a way of fully pushing everything else away and concentrating on the other person. And through that experience, I fell in love with all 60 of the humans that I was able to interview. I interviewed 10 people in 6 countries, including the mayor of each country. And this picture on the left of your screen is so great. This is the mayor of Rania, Kurdistan, Iraq. And he was so sweet. He kept, normally they're like 30 minutes because you try to be respectful, 30 to 45. But it wasn't like an hour and 45 minutes because he kept saying, well, you must have other questions. And what for me was beautiful about that is he wanted to share, right? There was that need and desire to connect. And I find that really powerful. oops, let's see. Hold on, it doesn't want to go anywhere. Oh, there we go. It did. That's funny. So I took all the things and I wonder if you can't see it because there are people here. Hang on. No. Okay, there. So I took all the things that people said to me and I recorded them. And I actually wrote everything verbatim into the artworks. And I had never worked on Tyvek, which is this kind of crazy industrial material, but it was really light and everything had to go into a suitcase under 40 pounds. And I wanted it to be like Mary Poppins. And down below, you can see in Iraqi Kurdistan, opening up this, I wanted it to have purpose and color and meaning and connection. And so that's where the words came in. And I often use words as a form of mark making to make something really meaningful. Those words then are like in part and parcel to my practice. And also I often make an invitation for other people to create something, draw and or write and put it directly on the wall in the museum or art center or wherever it happens to be. And this project, we had 2,500 volunteers over the course of 6 years, and an awful lot of those squares that were generated, and they really felt like love notes. And so that's kind of where the love after this project came in. When I traveled to Japan, by that time, I realized I could have 14 scrolls that were like 35 feet long in a suitcase and have it be under 45 pounds, which was a small miracle. And we had a kind of a language barrier. So they thought I could do kind of one level of this. And when I got there, I was like, no, it's hard to tell in the photo, but there's actually 3 stories of the city hall there in Asumi City, Japan. And we drop these things down. And normally when I have an exhibition, I go in and I hang the thing and then I leave the gallery or whatever space and walk back in fresh to just sort of see how it feels and if everything is the way I intended. And in this case, I walked out of the building and this is what happened. I mean, it had transformed the surface and the facade of the building. And it for me was one of these pivotal moments that changed my life, like instantly. All of a sudden, I understood space in a way that I really didn't ever before. I had been working as a painter, and which is a kind of a two-dimensional surface. I mean, I'd done some other things, but always had wanted to be a public artist and take over and do some installation work, but I really didn't have the vocabulary or understanding of what space was like. And that moment in 2017 in Japan, boom, changed my life. Because as soon as I saw what happened to the outside of the building, I knew that I just understood space. And so that moment has changed everything I've done since then. And I think when we kind of pay attention to the things that we're doing as artists, it does build and it does bring us somewhere new. So then when the project had finished and had been to all the museums in the 6 countries, I pitched it to the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. And I knew at this point there was a bay of windows and I knew what was going to happen to the windows across from what you're looking at. And this installation is 185 feet long. And for me, it goes to kind of propagating the ideas of humanizing one another. Those interviews were really intimate and private. And so I listened to them. I did not share them publicly as a content. However, I don't know, there's text, this whole thing, it's all text based. And so there's an interesting kind of tension between this really personal, intimate conversation that I had with each of these 60 people and this public presentation of it, because those interviews were really sacred to me and important to keep that confidence, because people really leaned in and said things that were really powerful, like, I think you should know I had breast cancer, or just people shared really intimate details, because at the end I always ask if there's anything else you want to share. And so there's an interesting tension between something that's really public and yet really private and intimate. And so it has both of those kind of aspects to it. And I'm really interested in that tension. Okay, hang on. I might have done something weird. There we go. So this is what happened to the outside of the building. And I was excited. And again, like I said, I understood that was going to happen. And so then you can plan for that, right? And that that project at the airport led to other projects. So then I was commissioned to do this, a couple of permanent mosaics at the Minneapolis International Airport. And just thinking about color as kind of a language into itself. I think a lot of my work is really about visual optimism, and it doesn't come from a place of joy. And I don't mean to say that I'm miserable exactly, but it comes from a deeper kind of researched, more serious place to provide that sense of levity for the viewer. And the interview process is really started back when my kids were little. I always did an artist residency for a month in the kindergarten classroom and did every kid's portrait. And I started asking them questions, what color do you like? And sort of to begin these ways of connecting with people, really, and ways of creating artwork around that. So I had an exhibition at the Rochester Art Center in Rochester, Minnesota, which is, the town is really kind of Mayo Clinic. It's a very Mayo Clinic forward because there are 24,000 employees there. And I interviewed a lot of healthcare providers around how they incorporate creativity into their own art practice. And that was really profound because some people, one doctor create the whole clinic, the way they created their clinic is all surrounded by art because they feel like creating a healing space, and art can really do that. Some people talked about encouraging their patients to use drawing or some other form of creative activity. And a nutritionist talked about kind of when you feel the need to eat, if you're having an eating disorder, to do something with your hands like clay or some other kind of creative act. Those interviews then became the central focus of these paintings, which are 6-foot square. So all of the lines and marks in these paintings are words, and they're words based on those interviews. Throughout those interviews, 10 words really kind of just emerged and became really, they kind of kept repeating themselves. And so I took these 10 words and embedded them and made stickers to share with and to propagate these ideas. I embedded these words in this kind of central atrium piece at the Rochester Art Center. And this piece is entitled Will to Meaning. And I don't know if anyone's read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, but that is the book that gives me the most solace, especially when things are really tough. And which we all have those times. So I embedded the words in here so that people could have a sense of kind of discovery and a scavenger hunt and a way of kind of connecting with this big, colorful, suspended artwork. This is the exhibition that was adjacent to the main piece that I showed you in the atrium. All of this work comes out of these are iterated things. Like these light works, which are at the very far back and on the left, came from kind of a not very great exhibition, which turns out to have been super, super generative. But I built this room that I was not satisfied with. And but it was the first time I'd painted on both sides of the Tyvek, and the light streamed in and activated the Tyvek. And so the color of the Tyvek from inside the room changed because of, I think it was magenta on the outside and blue on the inside, and it became some form of violet. And I was so excited that I could see these big 6-foot square light boxes that are in the back. But again, I didn't know how to do that. I just had this idea. Well, it took me 2 years of iterating and failure to figure out how to make these gorgeous things. And here you can see, this is the final product of the guts of the inside. It has, I don't know, 150 LED lights, but that was a lot of failure went into making there's these glorious things. There was a lot of, I didn't know how to put the material in front of the light. And it was quite a process. And again, when I work this big, I really can't do it alone. I often am working with a team of people and experts in different areas to sort of help me facilitate, because like this is a pretty complicated electrical system. And I think of these light works as a metaphor for life, thinking about how we all have these deep, dark moments of hard times, and that light comes through those, and that we need to, when we have the darker times, they really do help us be aware and acknowledge when we have those lighter times. So these are just sort of a visual representation of this idea of kind of visual optimism and light coming through darkness. Often in an exhibition, I have a participatory element, and I started cutting up my work and sharing it in different ways and having people participate on it in probably 2012. So it's been a while. And again, every time I do it, it gets better and more and deeper. So you're looking at these squares that I had produced, but what goes into those is a ton, is all this 30-year practice, and then just iterating it over and over again. But they're all hand painted and scanned in and printed and grommeted. And there's a lot of preparation that goes into this so that the public and anyone can participate. In this case, it's a well-being wall. So the prompt is, what does well-being mean to you? And I do all that effort because I think it feels different than if you have a white piece of paper for the non-artist, for just anyone to participate on. So it feels like it's a really respectful way of inviting people in. And then I always share a sticker afterwards as a gratitude gift. I love public art because it can be anywhere, and it always takes you, or can take you, by surprise. And I love that. This is the big atrium piece that I just showed you that was at the Rochester Art Center, that was 3 stories. After that came down, the city of Rochester said, well, we really like to keep this work alive here. Can we use it? So they had these light boxes on the street. And so I was fortunate enough I cut up the work and, curated it so that it would work in this 6-panel display. And now it's outside, which is a wonderful thing because it's a plaza that's used by lots and lots of folks. And there's a shelter nearby. So this is kind of a living room space for some folks. And I find that really lovely because it was a nice way to sort of transform and enliven that space. And at night, it glows a lot more than it does during the day. Actually, I never thought about this, but when I think about remember I said the windows and then in Japan and the windows at the airport, I mean, in some way, this is clearly connected to this idea of something glowing from inside. Cool.
Yeah.
Always good to have to talk about your work because it makes you think. So in addition to other things that I did in Rochester, I started working with Mayo Clinic and was able to do some public interventions with their staff to learn about their ideas around the values of the Mayo Clinic. And they also did squares. And this is the kind of they have 8 core values. And so each of the sides has 8 core values. There's a lot of text here. And they're also on either side of this. You have a lot of the squares that the staff made. It's an honor to be a partner with Mayo. There are some terrific people doing some great work there. I think also they had Mayo had a brain health conference with 1,500 people for their neurology department, and I was invited to speak there as well. And what that tells me, really, what that indicates, I guess, is that the work that we're doing as artists has less like measurable outcomes than, say, math or science or some other areas, but that there is other sectors in our world that are recognizing the work that we're doing and valuing it. You can see here is an iteration of the squares into a quilt. So sometimes I'm doing that as well with the public. This is another sort of art and health dive and an experimental sculpture that was in Texas this last year. So right now I'm at the Plains, as I mentioned, and this very room, I did a series of interviews with the community, and you can see the drawing here is really crude, or it's not finished. But here I was taking the input of the folks and writing it directly into the painting at the same time. So there's this kind of feedback loop. Like if a person would choose a color, then I would pick up that color and I might ask what their name is and write that in there. And that's a kind of way of acknowledging one another. And this is one of those finished works, all text-based. Here they are in the gallery, all pretty and framed. You can see that there are 3 smaller light works here, again, just exploring that theme with a little bit more yellow and thinking about yellow as optimism and as the sun. So when I have an exhibition, typically the wall will be empty, only there's just little nails in there. And so this is sort of the opening night, and then it develops over time and becomes really populated with the participatory things that people write or draw on. This case, again, it's the well-being wall too. So this is about well-being. And the other day I was in the gallery and this woman came in and she just went right over to the wall, and I ended up talking to her, and she said she comes over about twice a week just to see what people write and draw on these squares because she finds it inspiring. And that's, to me, ultimately really the purpose, and quite beautiful to have that kind of humanization of whoever the artists people are who wrote or drew on them, and then just to feel humanized yourself by what people say and share. These are the 5 words that kind of came up here in the Plains Art Museum. And then these are the stickers that are always as a thank you. My grandmother used to do my portrait. She was an artist, and every time you'd get like a little tiny present, maybe like it was a 50-cent something or another that she'd bought. And I take that forward. And here at the Plains, this is the atrium piece that has those 5 words embedded in it throughout. So you have that sense of discovery. And here you can, like, here's a word kind of at the kind of the base of one of the, what do you call that, loop, I guess. I was pretty excited because they made 5 billboards, and I always wanted a billboard. So I'm sharing that with you just because I'm excited. So that brings me to the I Love You Institute. So during the process of creating the 122 Conversations project, people kept saying, well, what are you going to do next? And I thought, well, I don't know. So somewhere where the exhibition was still up, I sat bolt upright in bed at 3 a.m. and I thought, it's got to be I love you. It has to be I love you. That's the next step. And again, I think this idea was great in 18 when I came up with it, but I think it's even more urgent now. So I had to ideate it a bit and realize that you just can't have a project called I Love You. I mean, you could, but I want to be taken really seriously. So I went for the Institute and then brought in a whole bunch of other people, because I had recognized through the 122 Conversations that I really loved working within the structure of a project. So this is kind of it's like an umbrella almost for my practice. It doesn't incorporate every single thing I do, but it incorporates quite a lot of what I do. And I think of the kind of institute focusing on kindness as a radical act and on the power of empathy and compassion in social transformation. And so it can have all different kinds of iterations of it can show up in different ways in different communities. And that's the other thing that's kind of neat. Partnering with other people who are implementing things in different states is exciting, which is why I'm so excited to be partnering with you today and throughout this next year. There's a website and an Instagram and taggable and all that stuff. So part of 122 Conversations, the very end, which was actually an opening exhibition, I created something called Love Notes, because if you'll remember, I said that those squares that people were creating in the Iraq, Japan, Canada, Sweden, and Russia ultimately felt like love letters. So I had these aprons that had traveled to all the countries also, again, to humanize and to provide kind of that human element. And so everyone walked around, and these are all just volunteers and friends, and they shared love notes from different countries, because I had them copied so that we could give something and also honor the people in all the different countries who participated. So we're excuse me. So sometimes we do an I'm grateful for you postcard, which is what we're going to do together. And in your chapters, they'll be printing them out so that you can print them out and write or draw on them as you see fit, just as a form of sharing gratitude. And we know that when we share gratitude. It changes our brain chemistry when we receive some gratitude. If we're in a room where someone else is being complimented, our brain chemistry changes, and it's good for all of us. So I've done all kinds of things. I during COVID was panic stricken and felt that I really needed to do something because I felt that it's my job to do what I can. So I created these little packs of and they're so cute. These little what do you call them? Baby colored pencils, and then the postcards, and sent them out with the lunch, because lunches were still being delivered at that time at the local middle school, so that was a way that they could, get something like a little art pack in the post, or not in the post, but with their lunch. It's been great. So it iterated in all kinds of ways. I had an intern for a period, and they were doing classes at the Boys and Girls Club in Duluth, which was wonderful because that was an ongoing way of being impactful. There was a dance program of teaching dance. I also made these lovely markers, which I'm just crazy about. Also during COVID, in China, I had them produced, and of course, then you really couldn't get anything out of there because it was the shipping was all completely clogged with PPE. But what was lovely and remarkable to me is every time I spoke with my colleagues in China who were creating these for me, they always ended the conversation with "I love you." And I just thought, well, that was such a beautiful way of connecting, and it was heartwarming for me. I worked in universities, again, propagating gratitude. And sometimes we say "I love you" on the postcards, as opposed to "I'm grateful for you." Again, it's just iterating and doing new things. And even with one of your colleagues, Rachel Ep Buller in Kansas, I came and we did a little project with her students there in connection with an exhibition I had there. And there we did something really radical. We literally took phone books and just wrote to random people in the phone book and shared love, which is kind of cool. And I think maybe some of the students had never even seen a phone book, which is also lovely. There were all kinds of different iterations of bringing people together and sharing gratitude and joy. In where was that? Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I did a kind of a week-long thing connected to the Festival Unbound, which is part of Theater Unbound. And we had like a week-long gratitude and created these quilts and ultimately like braided them over the edge of this bridge and threw in flowers. It was just a really beautiful kind of ceremonial way of ending the week-long project. So this is a little mini, oh, you won't be able to hear it, so I'm not going to play. That's so sad. Maybe I'll play it and I'll say it. This is just little, like for the well-being wall, what kind of some of the responses people have. I'll say what they say. We'll see how this goes.
Down the first things that came to my mind. My
So they're
family, my
writing down the
friends,
first thing that came to
putting
their
myself-
mind.
You can hear it, Anne.
means to me is just
Can you
have,
hear me,
like,
or is this
sense of
weird?
identity and
You can hear it.
You can? Oh,
family, friends.
I put the same doodle that I usually did as a kid, mental fortitude.
Finding the things that fill you up and make you happy. Be present, dream big, love loud, fear nothing.
awesome. Cool that we can
I
hear.
just
So I'm gonna see if I can see your faces now. Hold on, if I can find you. No, oops. So hopefully your chapters will bring the I Love You Institute postcards, and it's branded as a kind of co-partnership. So you have like a little tiny line that says Women's Caucus for the Arts and I Love You Institute. And I think of it as a kind of way of amplifying our voices, because it's one postcard with gratitude is wonderful. And when you think about being a part of something that's a durational experience, like a year long, and of really sharing gratitude and propagating the idea of kindness and of radical care, it becomes something that's even more important. One thing my father always said to me was nothing happens but for the initiative of a single individual. And I think in particular now we need to remember that, because each of us has a very unique set of life experiences and of passions and of hopes and of dreams and of things that we want to be impactful at. And I am a firm believer that each of us can do our part in different ways, and that whatever things that you're really passionate about and you're particularly connected to, that's where you can be the most impactful. So I encourage you to be the most yourself you can be the weirdest, most idiosyncratic form of yourself, because that somehow, when we do that as artists, it's like the closer we are to ourselves, the more it opens up a space for other people to enter that conversation or to experience. And so I want to encourage you to be the most yourself you can be, because we need you, we need your voice, we need your work, we need your connectivity. It's really important. We're just better together, and we're better when we take action. So I'm not sure how to do it where I can, hey, maybe that's some part of it. Let's see. I guess I lost your faces somehow. Well, I guess I can't, as long as I
You
don't lose you though,
You
right?
have to unshare.
But I want to show you this one slide. So I'll just, even though it's a little bit not perfect. So just thinking about the radical act of gratitude and how urgent it is, and that we know it's scientifically proven. I love that. I kind of have this, I love writing that, bringing the science into the arts, because I love things that are measurable, and I think it helps kind of, not everything has to be, but it does provide some form of legitimacy that sometimes is helpful for funding or whatever. And that we're doing this collective action to promote gratitude, and that it's subversive. It's subversive because we need it so much. So, oh, there you guys are. I found you. That's so great. But now you see you. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. Hold on. Are you still there?
We're back.
Yes. We didn't lose each other. Awesome.
That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Okay, so what I thought we would do is talk a little bit about radical kindness, and or any other, first of all, anything come up for you? You want to share anything? Love to hear.
Oh,
Does
I
anyone?
envy large spaces and help to do large projects. I just think that's wonderful.
Yes, you seem to have solved the storage issue in using Tyvek, which is wonderful because it's, you can do these enormous things, but it's not going to take up a lot of space. It's not going to weigh, as much as canvas or, board or, those kinds of things. And even fabric, fabric can get heavy if it were the size that yours, are. I just think it's just so amazing what you've been able to do. Love the way that you've incorporated the conversations into the artwork so that it has, double meaning. Not only those wonderful intimate conversations, but you got the interplay of color and emotion and what it means to people. So this is just such a fascinating project that you've done, and I look forward to participating in your I Love You project as well. Thank you for sharing.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I think that I will say that the scale and the storage thing is real, even if it's Tyvek, it's real. It's real. And I think when I started, like I did the first one of those that went to Canada. Well, I drove it up there. My car, the whole thing was full. And then it was like, okay, next was a war zone. So like, okay, what's the plan? Like you're now asking a lot of people. So you really have to think about what exactly you're asking and why. So, because it has to be really purposeful and meaningful, or you're burdening someone unnecessarily. So the Tyvek was really hard. It took me 3.5 months to learn how to draw paint on. It's a vapor barrier. It's not meant for it. I don't recommend it. It's a really hard material. And the way I handle it, it looks really like fabric and flowy, but it takes a lot of effort to make it look like that, oddly enough. But I think
that's a whole nother layer of strategic planning when you're doing these things in other countries, other cities, all this kind of thing. So you've got layers of things that you're doing.
Exactly. And it's really fun. The more, the better for me.
Adele, you had a question.
Well, I don't have a question. I find this, Anne, incredibly exciting, the whole concept of the postcards. I live in New Hampshire, and we just lost the entire funding for the New Hampshire Arts Council.
Really?
And I would love to see WCA-NH do a project and send one of these cards to every single legislator and senate. What do you have on yours, Laura?
So well, this is an example of the card.
Oh, okay.
New Hampshire chapter, I just sent a whole bunch of cards to the New Hampshire chapter. I included stamps because you're my chapter. But they're 5x7, uncoated, nice weight cardstock, and they take art materials beautifully. And also, I sent packages. I have and stickers here that she had been talking about. Each chapter that I've sent postcards to has gotten also a very nice selection of different stamps. Stickers that is a thank you to the members for working on these postcards. But I think you're right, sending postcards to all of our legislators, because we would be the only state in the union without a new state arts council. Imagine that. Anyhow.
Ugh.
Yeah,
So
Gina.
far.
So far, right? Gina,
Oh,
you had a question?
I'm from New Hampshire also. And I would just want to say I'm looking forward to doing that. That is a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Gina Washington, you had a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Cleveland doesn't have a chapter. I would love to participate in any way possible in this project as well. So how can we make that happen?
All right, so why don't I'm going to put my email in the chat, Gina, and we can work on this together.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Maybe you can get a group of your friends together and I can send you out some postcards.
Well, I also teach K through 12, and I'm like, wow, summer camp is getting ready to happen, and this would be a nice thing that we could do during summer camp, and we can send it to legislators and things to that effect. And you guys, the NEA just dropped a whole nother craziness on us. So like, something has to be visual, vocal, and constant in this madness.
Yeah, so we'll connect. I'm going to make a little note.
I also want to comment that I've been repurposing greeting cards and postcards that I've collected over the years. I've drawn over the top of them. I have been sending things to legislatures. I haven't actually been telling them that I love them, but I've been appealing to them on other levels. But I'm also doing this to other artists that I know, and I'm glad to get your cards too, but I've also been repurposing
It's great.
all my other stuff. And I draw on it with like gold markers and stuff. So you can do that now.
Yes. And the reason why I was really excited about the I Love You Institute and then working with you together to create the I Am Grateful for You project with WCA is because, in this current political climate, so much is about hate and anger. And, you're calling, acts of kindness, radical acts, I think really is the only way in my mind that we can fight against what's happening. I feel like love will eventually overcome hate. And sending these out to legislators who are, fighting the good fight to help encourage them as well, it would be an amazing thing to do. The fight's not over yet in New Hampshire. We have a couple little windows that we might be able to make some progress. So maybe acts of kindness will get them to change their minds.
I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know you go ahead, Anne.
One of the things that comes up for me about the hatred and the kind of this vitriolic way of communicating and being together and the kind of cancel culture thing is I don't think I don't think anyone's going to win at all if that's the method operandi. So I feel like there are things, just being respectful to another human being is like actually pretty radical right now. And I think that's important to embrace that and to recognize that even people who have different political opinions from us, also we can love them, because I think so many families have been, so much separation and anger and hatred when we're all humans and we are not the same. We have different values, and it's also okay to have a different value. I don't think that we will, as a society, move forward if we can't find ways to be respectful to each other. So that's where I feel it is radical. So it's actually a form of protest in a way, to be kind and to love and to show compassion and respect.
I loved your project sending to random people in the phone book.
Isn't that funny?
Like, where did you find a phone book? I haven't seen one in years.
I can't remember. It took a little effort, but we did it.
You have to have a landline.
You have to have a landline to have to be in the phone book. I guess that would be
Yeah.
right.
That's
Yeah.
how you get it.
They still do exist. I had kind of an art question about, you had those mosaics created. Now, did you have to work with the company to get that done? You didn't personally do the mosaics? Like, public art is kind of an interesting thing where you're oftentimes having to hire people to do the work for you, as you would an architect building a building, right? So I wonder if you could just walk us through that process just briefly.
Well, it's great because also I wanted to talk a little bit about the question of authorship, right? Because often I do things like I make these squares, right? I made the square, but the public's participating on it. So it's actually our work, right? It's not my work. And that's not something I would sell, because again, it's our work. How do you monetize that? And it's not fair. So it gets a little bit sticky, right? And public art is a little like that. It's different in the sense that, like the mosaics, I was invited to come up with some designs for the mosaics, and there's a budget. And I started that relationship by the piece that was 185 feet was a temporary installation in the airport. So I began a relationship on a temporary way with the airport. It ended up being there for 5 years, and we had a good working relationship. So a way for them to say thank you was to provide me a opportunity to do something permanent. But I'm not a mosaic artist, right? I'm a painter, and I can do some stuff, but I don't think I can do mosaic. So I got 4 quotes, and I really it was also during COVID, so it's kind of a weird time to get humans to give you a quote, because some people just didn't respond. But what I learned was, it's so odd because the mosaic master, the person who's working with the mosaic is actually they made the thing. They're the fabricator, and it's hardly ever stated anywhere. So I couldn't, like, I saw a friend of mine's mosaic in New York, and I thought, that is the person I want to do it. I was like, you know how your body tells you? Well, it took me a week to figure out who had fabricated it, because it's not public information the way, well, they're a partner though. It seems to me like it could be public information. So I have always shared who my fabricators are, because I feel like it's a partnership. So anyway, that's how I found the person I wanted to work with. But like I said, it literally took me a week of like trying to figure out who made it. So I got 4 quotes, and they were all over the place, right? Financially. But I had this feeling, like I said, about this one. So they have a partner. It's Mioto Mosaics. They're in upstate New York. Lovely people. Taught me so much. And so I made these paintings, and he said, it's got to be 1 inch per 1 inch. So 1 inch per 1 foot, I beg your pardon. So I was making these huge paintings thinking you make a huge painting and then they translate it into mosaic. Well, that quadrupled the price, right? Because of the detail they had to jam into the into the tiles. So I learned 1 inch, 1 foot, and that because that changed the price structure and I could come in on the budget, right? So my person has a partner called Travis Nuto Mosaics, which is just outside of Venice, which is just a terrible place to visit. I wouldn't recommend it. No, I'm just kidding. So of course, Venice is lovely and I love to go to Venice. So I was able to go visit and it's just so wonderful there. But so the mosaics, the glass is actually Murano glass. And so they make these beautiful glass and then they create the mosaic there and they kind of make them about this big, but they have a jagged edge. And then they put them on a pallet and they, ship them to you. And then the Stephen Mioto from upstate New York came and installed them. So, and I think public art is a great way. I mean, as an artist, so I'm an adjunct professor, I'm a public speaker, I sell my work and I do public art. So it's just one of the things that I do to make to make a living and make my practice whole. But it's so nice because it can be in places that are, a complete surprise. You don't expect it. And that can be really wonderful. But anything like really also the large pieces that I do, I need a team of 5 people. So I'm always at this stage really reliant on partnerships and friends and colleagues that I trust. Because, if you hang something over someone's head, you need to be really sure it's not going to fall down. Right? Even if it's really light, there's all these crazy considerations that I never would have thought of before, like HVAC and sprinkler systems and security systems, because now you have something moving and it looks like it's an invader, all the things, right? So I've learned a lot. And, a lot of places, I will say this, have opportunities for artists who haven't done public art to just do the design part, and they have a system to choose a fabricator to make the thing. So something I really recommend. It's really, really fun. And I'm sure within your communities, there's, calls, and I wouldn't be so afraid of it because you can do it. And you don't necessarily have to make the thing. Like right now I have a meeting next week about a commission and another mosaic. Well, I will use my mosaic folks because they're amazing, right? They're so, and that's a great partnership because I know if I ask them to do a thing, it's going to be excellent.
Yeah, those were beautiful. Those were lovely. Another thing that struck me is you mentioned that you had done a project with your child's kindergarten where you did a residency and did their portraits. And my question is, did you just approach the kindergarten and said, I want to do a residency here. I'd like to do the portraits and do that? Like you made your own opportunity? Or was it something through the PTO where they were looking for an artist in residence to come into the school?
Great question. I was asked by the teachers to do it. Like it was a direct ask because they knew my work and they knew that I could do that. But I think it can go all the way around. Like most of the things that I get are because I ask, right? Oh, propose, however you want to put it. But I spend, I probably work 80 to 100 hours a week, and half of that is really, website, social media, reaching out, writing proposals, managing projects, blah, blah, blah. And I serve on, the Walker Arts Center board. I do arts activism. So it's all sort of in that kind of, I consider it all work, but it's just all into different sections.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about, you were talking about how you have to make your own opportunities instead of looking for opportunities sometimes if there's a thing that you really want to do. And I was impressed by that kind of observation. And I had I just had this other note that, I loved how you said your work was infused with visual optimism. And you totally get that by looking at the pieces. They are just joyful and colorful and luscious and saturated in color. And I personally just love them. I think they're just gorgeous, and excited to be sharing your stickers with the different chapters, and hoping people will be inspired by your work. So does anyone have any other questions or thoughts about radical acts of kindness? No? All right. Oh, Lisa.
I'll throw something out. I think it's great for a larger organization to make a project out of that because I think that draws more attention than just some of us random individuals who are, throwing things out. But to have it be a big national project, I think gets a lot of attention, and that I think has to be good. Just like public art has to be big, museum art has to be big. This project has to be big. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to participate in that.
And I actually think you bring up a really good point. And that's one of the things that I think I notice it with my students a lot. They're in a graduate program. So I work with the graduate students at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And I always say, hey, these colleagues are people who you can collaborate with. These are people you can have exhibitions with. These are people who are going to invite you to be participating in other exhibitions. And you are in a cohort, right? You are a part of this group that is bigger than yourself. It's bigger than your community because you're together. So I think that there's lots of possibilities for collaboration and creating new projects. I think it's really important to sort of think about, who do I know? Who do I connect with? Who do I share ideas with? And what can we do? And is there, and sometimes it's that, or sometimes it's more, I see an opportunity that like a call for, I don't know what, and maybe I can invite some friends to be a part of it. Maybe I can curate something. There's a great example. So Rachel F. Buller is a colleague of mine from my graduate degree. We got our master's in Berlin and New York at TransArt, which is a low residency program. Well, she and I became friends and colleagues when we were doing our master's, and we're still really well connected. And that's how this particular invitation came to me. So I think you never know where the next opportunity is going to be. And mostly it's somebody, somebody. So I encourage you to think about how to partner with your friends and your colleagues and with other people in the Women's Caucus for the Arts.
Yeah, great. Lisa, you had your hand raised, Lisa Almeida.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, Anne, how inspirational this has been for me. The work is beautiful, and the things that you shared, your work is fantastic. But I've had a project bubbling in the back of my head, a community project bubbling in the back of my head for a couple of years now. And it's slowly starting to gel together. And I really got a couple more pieces fell into place because of you today. And I'm really, really delighted to have the opportunity to be here. I don't know if anybody mentioned it, but the New Hampshire chapter meeting was supposed to be today, but we're having one of our spring snowstorms and it got canceled. Yeah. So that's why I get to be here. I was going to be at the chapter meeting, but I get to be here instead, and I'm so glad that I was. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was divine intervention. All right. Rona, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, can you hear me? I don't know if I'm unmuted.
We can.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I want a little bit of explanation from Laura and you about how the postcard project is going to work. Because I just kind of like to see our chapter, our little baby chapter, see if we can get people involved in that. Either, have a meeting about it and then
right. So
send them out ahead of time, or
Rona, your chapter, I put the link into the website. We have a page up on the national website under calls for art about the project with links on PDFs so you can get postcards printed. I've given away all the postcards I have so far.
Okay.
But I can send you some stickers, and there's also a flyer about how you can put your project together from the chapter, and also there's flyers that you can give out at the event when you have it. So I can talk with you offline if you want more detail after looking on the website. But I put the link to the project in the chat. So and all the resources you need to do the project are on the website.
So you do this as an event?
Yeah, I would do it as like, you could be part of a meeting you're having, or just a gathering where maybe everyone brings lunch and does a little potluck and makes cards. I mean,
Okay.
you can make of it what you would like.
Yeah, well, because we have people out of Houston, we've been doing our meetings online. So it would,
So maybe it's something where you can mail out packets, or people can download
right, ahead of time. Yeah.
PDF and then paste it to something like that. We have to get creative sometimes
Yeah, I know. I just,
Yeah.
and are we just then to display it somewhere or?
So this is different from, a lot of the art postcard projects where you create the art and then you mail it in, and then that's the exhibition.
Right.
This is not that. This is
Okay.
really just personal acts of kindness. You can spend as much time as you want creating your art or your message, or writing on the back a note to whoever. But it's really not it's not an exhibition. It's just
Well, that makes it a lot easier because then you don't have to find a place to actually
right.
exhibit it.
And someone will receive real snail mail with your art.
Yeah.
Or your collages or drawings, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. So it's just really a one-on-one act that you're doing.
Okay. All right. Thank you for a little bit of, without me reading online.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Meow meow. What's your name? Is your name Meow Meow? We can't hear you.
Okay, it's Remedios. I have a new computer and it's difficult. So I just am totally amazed that I caught this program today, because Anne, I am totally blown away by your work and your professionalism and your success. And it really gives me strength, because I have engagement activities like this I'm doing with my art. And sometimes I just feel like the wacko on the edge, and, everybody's laughing at me, or, the AI is getting ready to pull me down and incarcerate me. I don't know. So, but I keep going forward and it's growing. But anyway, this is some of my work in the background, the love, compassion, humildad. I took that to Buenos Aires back in the year 2000. And I've been trying to do this community building around the world around this love and what I call the gentle revolution. And I sent you in the text some stuff you can look at later. But I just wanted you to know how amazing I am with your work, and grateful. And I've also worked with Tyvek, and it is so noisy, just like
Yes.
wear earplugs. So, but your ideas are fantastic. I'm so glad to know you. I'm so glad I caught this today, because I'm feeling stronger and more empowered now. And I'm trying to network and have more exhibits synchronized in different places around. So it's that strength thing, just one exhibit is like, but if you have a whole city with related exhibits about the same subjects, all of a sudden the whole city's talking about it, or, as we spread across the world and the globe or whatever. So thank you. Let's spread it and keep going.
Lovely.
Bye-bye.
Good work.
Thanks.
Diane Louise Pulse, you had your hand up earlier. Are you still here?
Yes. Can you hear me? I just want to say this is so outstanding. This is my first time being to the second Saturday session, and it really, excuse me, is really, it was empowering, and it was just a fantastic presentation. It moved me. I cried. I just really thought it was just fantastic. I just want to tell you that it was really, really good.
Thank you, Louise.
Yes. Thank you for all your work for doing this.
Great. Marguerite, you had your hand up, or did you have to go?
Yeah, I have to go in a minute. I'm in between. Anyway, I have to go into a luncheon it's very powerful, because at my church, a friend's husband recently passed away, and it was all about this, very uplifting. And I came out on my way to the luncheon and tuned in. But I'm in a number of groups where we could sit down and do these postcards, including, I'm not representing my entire chapter, but I'll bring it to them here in Michigan. But are the cards anonymous, or you put your names on them, or?
Would be up to
Either
you.
way. Mhm.
Yeah, we like putting our names. I would put my name on mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I'll just bring it to a group because there are a number of people I'm around that I don't think we have the same values when it comes to voting, but I don't want to dismiss them from the universe. So they're the folk I probably want to send these cards to as well. But I'll sit down with a few groups that I'm in, including Detroit Society of Women Painters and Sculptors and the Fine Arts Breakfast Club here, and just get together and grab some groups and make it a community project. And I work with the Hannon Center for Older Adults, which I'm also an older adult, but yeah, they'd love to participate in something like this. So, okay. So I've been following you and I've been on the website ever since WCA mentioned it, and it's just so powerful. So again, just expressing my thanks that I was able to step out and participate.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I love to hear you're going to propagate and do it with different groups. I mean, that's what we can do. And the more we can, and there's lots of ways, right, to be impactful, but I think that's a really great way of starting, and people love to participate, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
I mean, having it spread beyond WCA would be amazing. It doesn't have to be within our chapters. It can start there and just continue out. It'd be lovely. Ann Martini.
Hi. Yeah, I love the fact that it's positive. There's so much negativity that we're all surrounded by, and and I love, love, love that this is a positive message because, and the visual optimism or whatever it is, visual really speaks like there's so many words being said, but it's not what you say, it's what you do, what you show. And I think there's so much opportunity, like in even in the rallies, I'm ready to have positive signs. Let's tell the universe what we want. And every community will spread to another community. It's very contagious. And I think this optimism and positiveness and love is going to be very contagious. So I thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I think sometimes it's hard. Like, I think that sometimes it's actually hard to be optimistic. And I think we can, it's like a switch. It's not necessarily easy, but I think for me at least, fortunately, I was blessed with a really optimistic everything in there. So I have that, but I sometimes have to really turn hard to get that switch on. But I think in terms of what we can do, that will help us go forward and go further and be more and to connect with more people. Because in the end, everybody gets born and lives and dies. And there are some commonalities. We are none of us the same. We have different values and different religions and different languages and cultures and food. And those things are wonderful. And there are some things, we all want to live and do our life, whatever that is. So I think we can find little threads of connection. And I think visually, you're right. Like visually, it's a different story. It's not a word. It's an expression, and there's a place to enter rather than a offensive sign. For example, in a rally.
Yes. All right. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, Anne, thank you so much for coming today. I know you have a super busy day and you're off onto some new things right after this. If anyone has questions about the project, feel free to email me. I can walk you through it. And we can work together to spread radical acts of kindness.
And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the things. Say hi. My email is probably right on the flyer, and I'd love to hear from you.
Yes. And Anne will also, she's offered if you want her to come and talk to your board or do a Zoom with your chapter members or something like that, she's happy to do that as well. And you can work with her to set that up. So I think we're done for today. Thank you everyone for coming.
Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
You too. Thank you, everybody. It was lovely to be.
Lovely. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.